Patrick Williams, restricted free agent, given a 5-year contract. You know, Patrick Williams had a terrible year last year. He had one good month, and I heard I heard you highlight his stats. Was it 14-4-1? Was his good month?
I think 2, but yeah.
14-4-1. He started out the season, lost his starting job. Yeah, lost his starting job, and to start out the season was awful for the first 19 games. He came back around. He finished the season hurt. I'm not sure if he's completely healthy. It's kind of a mystery. I haven't seen any video, but this is the guy we gave a 5-year deal to. Again, I don't have any issues with the 5-year deal. I do have an issue with the player option, which is just inexcusable. You compare and contrast how a team like the Cavs treated their draft pick in that same year in Isaac Okoro, who had a better year than Patrick Williams. And guess what? They played hardball with him. He's still not signed as far as I know.
Nope, they did sign him this weekend. But it was like 3 years, 38.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the Bulls should have done with a player like Patrick Williams. Instead, they gave out a player option like it's candy. Why? Well, they'll probably say because, we were worried about Charlotte and Detroit offering him a big contract, which, first of all, it's Charlotte and Detroit. You better reevaluate your player if those two teams have an interest in him. But that said, for argument's sake, let's look at, Charlotte and Detroit. Charlotte hasn't offered a restricted free agent to another player, offered a contract to a restricted free agent and another team in over a decade. The Detroit Pistons, it's been 6 years since they'd offered one. Restricted free agents leaving their team is extremely rare. I think Bogdanovich was the last one it happened to. That was, 3 years ago when he left Sacramento for Atlanta.
Pretty good.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You Detroit and Charlotte have young players that are going to get max contracts in the next few years. They're really going to give Patrick Williams $25 million a year. Get out of here. This is insane. We should never given him a player option, but we did. And there's no advantage to the org because if he stinks, he's going to just pick up that 5th year. And if he's really good, we're going to have to play max money in his 5th year. So enough said. Let's move on.
Gus in the comments saying Fred is taking us on such a wild ride. Hey,
Gus.
Enjoy it.
You always get a wild ride when Fred rolls through.
Enjoy it.
And we have both sides of this P-Will debate or discussion or discourse in the comments. Clayton saying, I've been saying it for years, stop calling him P-Will, start calling him P-Won't. Meanwhile, right after that, Rob in the comments says, I continue to collect receipts from P-Will haters. So, here, I'll just pose this to you, Fred. I'm curious. Maybe 5 years, 90 turns out to be an overpay and the player option that, as you said, and I agree, the front office seems to give those out like candy to everybody. Why? I don't know. But
me neither.
We have had a similar discussion on this program after Pat signed that contract saying, when you look at this insane continued increase of the NBA's salary cap, and you're talking about the best superstar players in the league going to make $60+ million for 1 year, for 1 year of a multi-year deal. We just saw Steph Curry's extension the other day. These deals that, like the likes of Jason Tatum just signed. It won't be long before the best, highest paid players in the league are making close to $100 million for 1 year. Meanwhile, role players who are good role players making something a little bit above year to year, whatever the league's mid-level exception is. Pat, it is straightforward $18 million a year over a 5-year deal. Do you not see the value in realistically saying, hey, if Patrick Williams is a reliable 3-and-D starting caliber player who maybe never reaches a fourth overall pick, star potential that a lot of Bulls fans wanted to see, that there is still value in a contract like that?
I agree there is absolutely value for a contract like that for a player who is a role player, an elite role player who shoots 40+ from 3 and plays really good one-on-one defense. Where I disagree with you is in the adjective which you called him reliable. He's finished 2 seasons.
I'm not saying he was. I'm saying hypothetically.
Hypothetically, yes, There's nothing wrong with that. My counter, and I heard Will say this a lot, and I kind of agree with the general premise, which is like, hey, in 3 years, it's only going to be 10% of the cap. My counter to that is it's 10% of the cap. Like, there's a hard cap now on the NBA at the second apron. People haven't realized it yet, but it's actually factually true, which means every dollar matters. If you're overpaying a role player by $3 million and you keep doing that with each each player on your team that you sign, you are going to screw yourself in the future. You're not going to allow yourself to have that flexibility to make those moves and bring in the $60 million player, which is going to make the difference.
So I totally agree with your first point, which is that the player option was a mistake. Like, especially the way that they structured the deal with it being $18 million per year flat, as opposed to 8% annual raises, which is how normally contracts work. As a percentage of the cap, because it's flat and the cap is rising, that means that the percentage of the contract as a percentage of the cap is actually going down.
Right.
And so you lose the value on the back end that you would be getting by it being a flat contract, because now it's effectively a 472. And so I agree that was unnecessary. You're already probably paying him more than anybody else would. That's where you get the team gets the benefit, right? You get the team option, or it's just a standard 5-year no options. But I will say this, Fred, and I think it might make you feel better. How would you say Patrick is compared to a Dorian Finney-Smith?
I like Finney-Smith. Just picked the wrong guy. I think he's an excellent defender.
Do you think he's a similar caliber of player?
I think they're different players. I think Patrick's a better 3-point shooter, I would say, right? I believe so.
I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think they're very similar archetypes, right? Of 3-4 combo forwards who don't really do much with the ball in their hands, but are good shooters and defend.
Yes.
Same exact percentage of the cap. Dorian Finney-Smith is like a guy who, people were talking about 2 first-round picks for him. And yes, the CBA has changed, but I do think that it is a small enough number as the cap rises that it's probably going to be okay. I think it could have been better. I think the player option makes it much worse, but I don't think that's like such an exorbitant overpay that it's going to be impossible to move. I think you could actually get value for it.
Do you agree that Okoro had a better year?
I believe that Okoro had a better year than Patrick.
And what did he sign for?
I don't believe that he is necessarily a better prospect.
I disagree with that.
First of all, he's like 4 years older.
Yeah.
And secondly,
4 years older.
No, I'm pretty sure he's
no, he's not. He's 2 years older at the most. And I will say, because Patrick just turned 23, so he's 19, 20,
23.
Yeah.
No, I was wrong about that.
They're the same age.
They're the same age.
They're the same age.
I thought he was an older prospect. I was wrong about that. In any event, I don't think that maybe I'm biased here, but I would still say Patrick has a higher offensive upside than Okoro. And
Okoro shot 39% last year.
Yeah, but he's wide open, and he's not shooting as many.
So's Patrick.
And he
doesn't shoot any.
Completely ignored. Like, you still have to close out to Patrick.
We'll agree to disagree on this, because I think that Okoro is a better defensive player than Patrick.
Probably at this point, yeah.
Yes, he is. He's elite defensively.
Yeah.
Elite.
For the record, Dorian Finney-Smith, career 35.5% 3-point shooter on 4.2 attempts. P. Will, 41% career 3-point shooter, but only 2.8 attempts spanning his first 4 seasons.
I'm not denying that there is tremendous value in Patrick Williams. I like him as a role player. The issue I had is, you look at some of the contracts that were out there. Let's just look at Obi Toppin, who had a great year. Different player, for $15 million per year, $60 million contract.
Sure. The
Bulls overpaid. They did overpay. They could have played hardball with him. This is an injured player. This is a player who had one good month. This is a player that there's a lot of red flags about.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a evening of June 30th announcement that they signed into that deal. So that was their first priority.
Correct.
Their first priority when free agency window opened was let's get this Pat deal signed.
Yeah. So what are you paying him though, Fred?
I would have been fine 54 years. $60 million a year. I've been totally fine with that. Mm-hmm. But again, that 5th-year option, I couldn't believe it when it came through.
It's the process that you're upset about. And
the process,
but it's like you could have tried to squeeze him there, and it didn't seem like they did, because they rushed into it, because they gave him the option. They could have done better.
And it also, just think about it, everybody's like, well, you're making a big deal about $3 million. Gary Trent Jr. just signed with the Bucks for $3 million. It was under $3 million, I believe. There are good players signing. So once this team is good in year 4 or 5, and you got Patrick making $19 million, if you would have had that extra $3 million, you could possibly get a player like a Gary Trent Jr. who's going to make a big difference in the quality of your team. Every dollar matters with a hard cap. Everyone. So you had all the leverage and you gave it all away.
We all silly like the mayor.